Welcome one, welcome all to the We Know Baseball podcast. My name is Ryan. We've got an amazing episode 54 for you guys today. Talking, of course, standings, mid-season updates, MLB All-Star rosters, notable snubs, first-time inclusions, all the All-Star mid-season festivities we can talk about to this point on this current date, combined with some trends across the league that maybe you want to touch on. Be sure to stick around for all of those subjects, the entire episode. Really appreciate you guys tuning in to episode 54 of the We Know Baseball podcast. Let's get into it.
Let's go! Batter up! We're taking the afternoon off. It's a beautiful day for a home run, but even a triple's okay. We're gonna cheer and boo and raise a hullabaloo at the ball game today. At the ball game, a wonderful ball game today.
Wow. We say it every time, and we mean it every time. Welcome to the We Know Baseball podcast, everybody. My name is Ryan. At Ryan Knows Ball is my handle on Twitter. At We Know Ball Sports, Instagram, TikTok. Check us out on YouTube, anywhere and everywhere you can find us. My Twitter bio, at Ryan Knows Ball, has the link tree, which is a redirect link to all of our social channels. If you guys want to see us anywhere and everywhere, click that link in my Twitter bio and get everything you want from our content, because we're here to talk a little baseball as we sit here on July 10th. It has been a little bit of time. Between episodes. We say it on a lot of our episodes. The reason there's a lot of time in between, guys, is because this thing called life. I'd like to do it more regularly. I'm going to do it more regularly. Not that anybody cares. As August rolls around, things will start to get a little bit more hectic again in terms of interrupting the regularly scheduled programming. Got things like, I don't know, I'm getting married. Ever heard of it? Going on a honeymoon immediately following that. So there's going to be some disturbances. That being said, there has been some disturbances in the last couple of weeks. Speaking of marriage, we've been to a couple of weddings. We've been on a couple of small trips. In terms of baseball, I actually participated in, as I mentioned, my wedding coming up here in just over a month. I had my bachelor party with some of my good buddies, some family members. And in terms of baseball, the reason I bring it up is there was a lot of baseball involved in the trip. It was an East Coast themed trip. As a Padres fan, I mean, anybody that's listened to the show, you know I'm a Padres fan. We made it line up properly with a Padres trip to the East Coast. So originally I visited New York City and I took in a MLB, a big league ball game, Subway Series game between the Yankees and the Mets at Citi Field. First time at Citi Field. Beautiful stadium. Really enjoyed it. Kind of out of the way out in Queens, but really solid architecture, good feel. Atmosphere was absolutely electric. The Yankees and Mets playing together, I mean, that's just as good as it gets. Mets won. Aaron Judge went deep. All that was really cool. Immediately following that, made the trek up the East Coast and found ourselves in Boston for a couple of days and was able to hit Fenway Park for 2 games over the span of the 3-game series between the Red Sox hosting the San Diego Padres. So there you go. Got to see Fenway Park. It was absolutely magical. I would highly recommend it for anybody that's never been. Make it a priority if you get out to Boston at some point and the Red Sox are playing. It's in season. No matter the weather, no matter the circumstance, I really recommend you try to get out to a game. They're not that crazy expensive. I'm sure the midweek games, if it's not a great opponent, I mean, you could probably get in for 30, 40 bucks. So make your way to Fenway if you can, because we went and it was amazing. But that's part of the disturbances of this show and why we haven't been as regular. We've had some things going on, but we're back. We're here. It's episode 54. It's July 10th. We've got standings updates that we're going to do. We're going to talk about a little all-star roster, talking points of the league, and then we're going to go over just some trends to notice, things that I wanted to point out. But yeah, we sit here and we've got standings to go over. And we sit here on July 10th. As I look through these standings, most of these teams are technically, actually, every team I'm pretty sure is technically past the halfway point, right? The halfway point in terms of 162 games would be 81. A lot of these teams, keep saying a lot of these teams, every team has blown past that marker. It's a little bit interesting with the MLB All-Star game. It's always been this way, and everyone uses it, I think, as the proverbial halfway point. It's not. And in some cases, it's like way past it. It works out with scheduling in a few different ways. But with baseball starting literally like in March, end of March, yeah, beginning of April is kind of the start of the season, representatively. But typically, the All-Star game comes around, and every team has like 90 plus games under their belt. So it's like not really the halfway point. It's like the, I mean, in some cases, it's closer to like the 3/5 point, if that makes sense. But really good sample size. And at this point in the season, as we sit here, looking through how many games each team has played, it's around 90 at this moment in time, 90, 91, some even 93, 92, whatever. We know. I mean, there's a lot of games left. There's a lot of season left, but we pretty much know who these teams are at this point. And in the earlier parts of the season, it was a little bit too quick to judgment. I think everybody can agree it's easy to get on the hype trains of these teams going well. It's easy to dump on these teams that didn't start well. That's why the baseball season is as long as it is. That's why. Everybody asks, God, the baseball season's so long. Man, they should shorten it. 162 is too many. No, it's not. It can't. It simply can't be any shorter than it is. 150? 140? No, it has to be 162. Because if the season was any shorter, these games would continue to mean more and more and more. And if those games meant more and more, then I'm not sure things would unfold in the exact same manner. If it was a 130 game season, you'd sit there 40 games in and go, yeah, we're about a third of the way through. 42, 43 games in, we're a third of the way through. And man, the Yankees look unstoppable. No one's going to catch them. The Orioles, they got overtaken by the big bad Yankees. The Mariners are running away with the AL West. The Astros have no chance. They're spiraling. And all of a sudden, none of those things are true. The Orioles have caught and passed the Yankees. The Astros are seemingly going to catch the Mariners. And all those trends that would have been a third of the way through the season in a shortened baseball schedule, all of a sudden, those aren't panning out. Baseball needs to be 162 games. It is a large sample size, averaged out product. And that's why so many people, including myself, are so adamant that the 60-game season in 2020 means zero, means nothing. It was literally a third of the sample size with no crowds, with minimal travel. All of that stuff plays into the long, monotonous nature at some times of the baseball season. But that's when teams really show their true colors, when they go through extended, tough stretches. You don't get extended, tough stretches in a shortened schedule, in a schedule that's anything less than 162 games. The baseball season needs to be 162 games. We really don't have a choice. Baseball is never going to actually shorten the schedule either. In fact, they just continue to add playoff games and add playoff teams. I'm good with it. I'm fine with it. I think they need to expand the playoffs, honestly, a little bit more. Maybe just add some games to each round of the postseason, because you can't play 162 and then play a little 3-game series in the wild card round to decide the fate of a team's entire season. I totally think that's the case. I thought the 1-game wild card was stupid. I thought it should have been 3 right off the bat. 3 is okay, but why not make it 5, 7 in the division series, 7 in the championship series, and 7 in the World Series? I mean, the NBA does 7 every single round. NHL does 7 every single round, and they only play 80 plus games, right? 82. I go on this rant and I say all this because, like I said, here we are. Here we are, more than halfway through the season, and all those early trends, all those 60 game trends have almost turned on their head in a lot of cases. We're going to go over the standings. That's the point I brought it. That's why I brought it up. If you listen to our show and you know how it works, we always go over the standings first, and we start in the American League and we go east to west. So, that being said, why are we now sitting here in July after the New York Yankees looked unstoppable and the Yankees are looking up at the Baltimore Orioles in the standings? Orioles caught the Yankees and kind of blew past them. Yankees are going through a tough stretch, no question about it. Also, the Orioles have more depth. Also, the Orioles are younger. Those two things in today's baseball, with the speed, with the injuries that are at place, with all the new aspects of baseball that kind of weren't really a thing 5, 7, 10 years ago, all playing in the favor of the Baltimore Orioles. Youth and depth. I mean, every single player in their farm system is apparently in the top 100 prospects. They're all absolute monsters. They could call any and every one of them up at all times. They had the number 1 overall pick in Jackson Holiday earlier this season. Called him up, didn't play well. Whatever, send him down. Weren't banking on it. Didn't need him. We're hoping he'd play well, but looks like he didn't. We've got other guys. Whereas the Yankees play well. They're getting contributions up and down the lineup. Stanton's playing well. Rizzo was okay. Soto and Judge obviously carrying the team. Volpe starts off really well. Stanton goes down. Rizzo goes down. Volpe slows down a little bit. And the Yankees are just spiraling. Somehow the Yankees play better without Garrett Cole. They get Garrett Cole back, and it's not trending in a great direction. Why? Age is starting to catch up to him yet again. Rizzo, a little bit older, dealing with some injuries. Giancarlo Stanton goes on the injured list every single year. The depth isn't quite there. Next thing you know, the Orioles just very quietly overtake the Yankees, and I don't think the Orioles are going to look back. The Orioles are going to win the American League East. I think when it's all said and done, might be double-digit victory in terms of games winning the American League East. I think the Orioles probably going to win 103, 105. Yankees, 95-win team. Still very good. Still in the playoffs. And everybody knows, just get in, especially with the new baseball playoff format, right? But here we are. And all the hype about the Yankees, and as good as I do really think they are, which they are really good, and they definitely had more energy, more intensity, more enthusiasm to start the season, and higher productivity. Baseball is a long season. It is a marathon, not a sprint. Orioles quietly pass the Yankees, check their rearview mirror every once in a while, but ultimately never going to look back. Orioles are going to run away with the AL East as we get into the months of summer, July, August, September. The Orioles lead that division by 3 games. So the Orioles are 57-34. The Yankees are 55-38. So 3-game difference in their records. Both the Orioles and Yankees are plus 99 on their run differential. And both teams are playing to right about where their expected win-loss is. They both have plus 99 run differential, which is crazy. But they're both very good. As I sip my coffee here. Orioles 3-game lead over the Yankees. Yankees in second place, 55-38. Red Sox, Boston Red Sox, 50-40. Red Sox are playing pretty respectable baseball this year. Plus 39 on the run differential. Team stats are pretty good. Their pitching's been solid. They've had some offensive contributions from guys maybe they weren't expecting as much. But the Red Sox are playing some really solid team baseball, pitching the ball well. Mentioned it in the episode, went to Fenway. Got some good energy in that ballpark. I think the Red Sox fans are pleased with where they are right now, outplaying expectations. But yeah, that's where we are. Tampa Bay Rays 45 and 46. They're pretty much cooked. They're 5.5 back from wild card spot. Maybe they sneak in, but I doubt it. And then the Blue Jays, 41 and 50. We talked about the Blue Jays a couple of times already this season, but just wildly disappointing, underperforming, no energy. I mean, Vlad Jr.'s turned it on. He's on the All Star team, and we'll talk about that. But like, literally, the rest of the team is just just so flat. Like, there's just nothing there with the Blue Jays this year. And as Blue Jays fans, I'm sure. I mean, it's very disappointing, but that's the type of situation where when you lack kind of that veteran leadership, I mean, maybe they were looking for some of that and the acquisitions of Justin Turner and the likes. Justin Turner, I don't think has ever really been like a true loud, like the loudest voice leader of the clubhouse, not to mention he's not playing well. So Blue Jays have just kind of consistently spiraled. It seems like there's this glass ceiling above them that they just cannot break through this season. And because of that, they may end up being sellers at the deadline. I don't know who. I'm not sure what the return will be. Not sure the asking price. I'm sure those things will start to unveil themselves as we get closer to the trade deadline. But to say Vlad Jr., Bo Bichette won't get traded, I don't know. Guess we'll see. But that's the AL East, AL Central. Moving on. The Guardians, man. Cleveland Guardians holding strong, 57 and 33. I mean, it's just so good. Night plus 97 run differential. Good for them, man. Stephen Vogt, what a job he's done in not even a full season as their manager, first time manager. Really respectable from the Guardians. Jose Ramirez is playing out of his marbles. And yeah, it's good for them. Twins in second. Twins are playing really good ball as well, 52 and 39. Not much more you can ask for from that Twins roster, what they got going. They're playing pretty good. The Kansas City Royals, 49 and 43. The Royals started off really hot, and then they came back down to earth, but also leveled the storm in the skids that they kind of went through. And as they've leveled off here in the last week or two, they're still right there in the mix. I mean, they're 2 games out of a playoff spot, and 49 and 43 is well above where most people had them at this point in the season. Anything at or above 500 for them is a massive W and might get them into the postseason. If they get into the playoffs and they roll out a rotation of Seth Lugo, who might start the All-Star game, Cole Ragans, and Michael Wacha, I mean, like that's really good. Are they going to win the World Series this year? Probably not, but they're ahead of schedule, and because of that, good for them. Good for the Royals. Tigers are 43 and 49, kind of right where everyone had them. And then the White Sox are the worst team in baseball by far. They are 26 and 67 with a negative 166 run differential. And they have played 93 games. That is crazy. American League West, Seattle Mariners, 50 and 43. Houston Astros, 47 and 44. Mariners have a 2-game lead on the Houston Astros. The Mariners have a +9 run differential. The Astros, +38 run differential. The Astros, despite having horrendous starting pitching for a lot of the season so far, having some serious starting pitching absences and injuries. I mean, Ronel Blanco has probably been one of their best guys in terms of starting pitching. Has been good for them, but missed 2 starts because of a foreign substance suspension. Right? Justin Verlander is back, but missed a good chunk of the early part of the season. They've just had to weather the storm. That's all the Astros have had to do is weather the storm. Come back down to earth a little bit. Everything starts to level off. You've got Jose Altuve. The Astros were expecting like big things from Jose Abreu, and they like released him. Like they just released him with a bunch of money left on his contract. Um, so they get nothing from him. They get nothing from Verlander for 2 months. And lo and behold, the Astros are 47-44. They are 2 games back in the Mariners. So I think at one point had a double-digit games lead in that division. If it wasn't double digits, it was like 9 games. It was like a 9-game lead. 50-43 for the Mariners is a good record. Their starting pitching has been good, really good. But their offense, the Mariners' offense is like horrible. I mean, it's bottom 5 in every category you could quantify a team. Strikeout percentage, hard hit percentage, any production with runners in scoring position, slugging of any kind. They aren't doing anything offensively. Nothing. Zero. They aren't scoring runs. They have scored 80 fewer runs than the Houston Astros. 80 fewer runs. They're 50-43, and their expected win-loss is 48-45. That's 3 games over. That's fine. But they're outplaying their expected win-loss by 2 games, whereas the Astros are 47-44, but their expected win-loss is 49-42, based on runs scored versus runs allowed. So that tells me the Mariners have gotten kind of lucky. That tells me the Astros have gotten kind of unlucky. What does that mean? That means with the sample size and the length of the baseball season that we have, things are going to level off. And right underneath the Astros, just by the way, is the Texas Rangers. The Rangers are 44-48. It's not great, but they have a plus 14 run differential. Their expected win-loss is 47-45. So they're underplaying their expected win-loss by 3 full games. Guess what? They're getting a little unlucky. Luck is definitely a thing, especially, I mean, it's a thing in baseball. It's a thing in play, in short bursts, small sample sizes. Over the course of 162 games, the numbers and the luck and everything, all the things included, it's good. It's going to level off. Like it's going to level off. So what does that mean? It means I think the Astros easily win the AL West this year. And I don't know. It's hard to say. The Astros are going to win the AL West. Let's just be real, right? Let's just be honest with ourselves. The Astros are going to win the American League West. The Mariners are not going to win that division. And there's a really good possibility that the Texas Rangers also overtake the Mariners in the AL West standings as well. I mean, defending champions, Bruce Bochy, they're getting Max Scherzer back. They're probably getting DeGrom back at some point. The Rangers are going to be there. The Astros are always going to be there. Both of those teams, all they've had to do in the early parts of these seasons with injuries and lack of production and all the different factors contributing to them underperforming, they both just had to kind of weather the storm. The Mariners are like playing out of their mind. The Mariners are playing way over the top. And the Mariners can't hit. They cannot hit. So when you get to the end of the season, that's the reason the baseball season is as long as it is. It's because you need a large sample size. When you get that large of a sample size, the truth is revealed. And I think when the truth is revealed, the Astros win the AL West. They probably finish with 92 wins, 91 wins. The Rangers are right behind them at 87 wins to 90 wins. And the Mariners have 83 to 86 wins. Because that's where everyone projected them. That's the direction it's trending. And that's what's going to unveil itself at the end of a small or a large sample size, rather, of 162 games. That's what I think. The Angels are 37-54. They're cooked, obviously. And then the Oakland A's are 34-59. So that's the AL West. It's really interesting kind of how it's unfolding, but yeah, we'll see what happens. National League East. Moving on. National League East. Phillies are in first, 59 and 32. Plus 118 run differential. Starting pitching is unbelievable. Their lineup is banging. They're loaded, man. I mean, they are just loaded up and down, right? There's not really a ton of guys I'd love to pitch to in that lineup. I know when it gets towards the bottom of the lineup, I would say, you'd say maybe it gets quote unquote easier. Castellanos isn't playing great. They have kind of a hole in their lineup when it comes to whoever plays center field, whether it's Rojas or Stubbs. Like, I don't know. Everybody else I don't want to pitch to. And then if I'm the opposing team on offense, there's not really many guys in their rotation that I'd love to face. Zach Wheeler's an all-star. Aaron Nola is a perennial all-star and a great pitcher. Ranger Suarez is an all-star. Christopher Sanchez, don't think he made the all-star team officially yet, but he may become a replacement and is definitely all-star caliber this season. They have like 4 absolute dudes in their rotation. That's deadly when you get to the postseason. It's deadly. So we'll see. But yeah, again, up and down their lineup. I mean, who do you want to pitch to out of Schwarber, Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, Bryce Harper? I mean, I'm missing a bunch of guys. Oh, JT Realmuto. You want to pitch to him? I mean, he's hurt, but you want to pitch to him when he comes back. Brandon Marsh is good. I mean, like, who do you want to pitch to? Seriously. The answer is not many of those guys, if any at all. And the Phillies are nasty. They're 59 and 32. They're 7.5 games up on the Atlanta Braves. And they should be a lot of people's pick to at least represent the National League in the World Series. As of now, we'll see what happens, right? Second place in the NL East, Braves. Mentioned them already. 51 and 39. 7.5 back, playing pretty good ball. Not bad. Are they going to be in the playoffs? I would think. Because the National League underneath them in terms of just overall record is stinky. So the Braves should get in the playoffs. They got to get some guys healthy. They got to get better contributions. And we will talk about the Braves here in a minute. But yeah, interesting. Third place in the NL East, the New York Metropolitans. Okay, so the Mets are 45 and 45. They're right at 500. That's where they're going to be for a lot of the year. However, they've been playing better baseball. They are a game and a half out of a wild card spot. Mentioned the National League as a whole. Not great. But the Mets are playing better. And we talked about how there wasn't really a ton of dudes in that locker room, in that clubhouse, that had the ability to pull them out of the rut that they found themselves in. As it turns out, that guy or those guys were dudes like Lindor, who we talked about, dudes like Jose Iglesias, dudes like JD Martinez, guys in the past that weren't that weren't the aircraft carrier, most reliable. And even Jose Iglesias, like Jose Iglesias isn't putting up crazy numbers, but he is a like waiver pickup, trade piece, whatever you want to call that the Mets. I don't even know how the Mets got him, frankly, but he's come in, he's injected life into that team. Francisco Lindor has played better and has started to lead by example. And I think Lindor, when he came over from the Cleveland Indians at the time, came to New York, a lot of expectations, signed a big contract, played pretty well in that first season. Then the fans started coming out. It's been wonky for Lindor. Okay. And I've been critical of Lindor, and I've put out a lot of stuff being critical about Francisco Lindor. And a lot of people have come to Francisco Lindor's defense. A lot of people are like, come on, man, he's top 5 in F WAR amongst all National League qualified hitters, and he's a top shortstop at F WAR and all this. And it's like, yeah, that's true. I get it. Okay. The thing with Lindor and the thing with his role in the Mets and the thing with who he is as a player is you have to understand there's a difference between the numbers, the productivity, right? And then honestly, the actual contributions. And I know that sounds crazy, but with Lindor, the numbers are always going to be there. He's always going to have 30 homers or close to 30 homers. He's always going to have a really good WAR because he plays a premier position at shortstop. But that also doesn't necessarily mean he's being a positive contributor to the team. I mean, last year the Mets crumbled. This year the Mets started off horrendously, so bad. And Lindor's body language was miserable. And he was literally standing in an at-bat with his bat on his shoulder, watching a pitch go right down the middle for strike 3. That is the intangibles, right? That is the non-quantifiables that he was bringing in a negative way that were impacting the team negatively. And as we've gotten going a little bit here, into June, into July, he's played a lot better. He started to lead by example. He started to play with a little more energy. He started to come through in the clutch. He's starting to be the guy that they were hoping him to be. The guy that gets 30 plus million a year. The guy that signs a $300 plus million contract. He needs to be that guy if the Mets are going to be relevant in any capacity. The numbers on paper, 30 homers, 90 plus RBIs, probably 20 plus bags, like all of that will always be there for Lindor. It was there last year for Lindor. And what happened to the Mets? They tanked, like Frank the tanked, way into the depths of horrendous underperformance. Oh, but Lindor had I know. Okay. That should show you how much that doesn't mean in some cases. Solo homers and stolen bases when you're down 6 and shining defensive plays at shortstop when you're losing, like it doesn't mean as much, but the numbers make it look great. And hats off to Lindor. Everyone, including myself, was crazy. Not crazy. I was extremely critical of Francisco Lindor to start this season. I went as far to say, in a lot of cases, I thought he was overrated. And everybody came to his defense. And everybody said, dude, how can you put Lindor in the same category as Chris Bryant and Anthony Rendon? And dude, look at his F WAR. Dude, look at his numbers. I know his numbers look great. I also know his numbers looked pretty darn good last year. And that's a reference point people use. Dude, last year he was like fifth in F WAR. Okay, and where'd the Mets finish? Well, that's right, 7 games under 500. So that should show you that while the numbers may be there, the numbers aren't everything. And for Lindor, the numbers will always be there. He's incredibly talented. He plays a premier position. He's a switch hitter. 30 homers is very well within the possibility for Francisco Lindor pretty much every year for the rest of his career. He gets favorable matchups. He can hit from both sides of the plate. And when you have any offensive production from a shortstop position, you're going to have skewed numbers when it comes in terms of I'll put it this way. When you have any offensive production above league average at a premier defensive position like shortstop, other cases of center field and catcher, anybody who produces well offensively, the overall value numbers are a little bit skewed because you don't get those types of production numbers from shortstop, center fielders, and catchers particularly often. With Lindor, he plays shortstop. Last year he hits 30, close to 100 ribbies, whatever the case is, and the Mets were terrible. There's another part of it that you can't quantify that he was not doing at the beginning of this year. That was body language. That was leadership. That was setting the tone. The Mets get Grimace going a little bit, right? Whatever it takes. Slide Lindor up to the leadoff spot. Plays a lot better. Starting to lead by example. Coming through in the clutch. Giving the guys a little bit of energy. Finding his place as where he should be in terms of a leader in the Mets clubhouse. Things start to turn around a little bit. You get supplemental help from JD Martinez. You get some help from Jose Iglesias, from kind of unlikely heroes. Next thing you know, Mets are back in relevancy. But it's going to go through Francisco Lindor. If the Mets want to do anything for the next decade, it goes through Francisco Lindor. Nobody else. Pete Alonso is going to disappear. They aren't going to re-sign him. They just aren't. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Honestly, who cares? Because it doesn't matter. He plays first base. Pete Alonso, we know who you're going to be. We know you're not going to be the proverbial leader of that team, even if you are signed to a long-term contract. JD Martinez, not going to be there for long. Right? Francisco Alvarez is going to be a cornerstone for that team, but who knows, because he's got free agency in a couple of years. It's going to go through Francisco Lindor for the New York Mets. And I was critical of Francisco Lindor at the beginning of the season because he wasn't pulling his weight. I was critical of him. I was probably mistaken to group him into the same category as guys like Chris Bryant, guys like Javi Baez and Anthony Rendon. I just included them all together in terms of big contracts and underperformance. I was wrong about Lindor because his numbers are better than those guys. However, numbers aren't everything. And Lindor is always going to have his numbers. Always going to have 30 homers. Always going to have 90 plus RBIs. His WAR is always going to be amongst the top 25 players in the league because he plays shortstop and he produces on offense. And that number, the WAR number, the production number, the value numbers get skewed because he plays a premier position. Anytime somebody's good on offense or above league average at shortstop, center field, or catcher, their F4 is always going to be top 20, right? And no offense to Mike Trout, but that's the same thing. Guy plays center field, also puts up video game offensive numbers. All of a sudden, his WAR is 10. Same with Aaron Judge, right? Crazy. Lindor's WAR is always going to be, 5, 6, or 7, which is crazy good. No question. But at the beginning of this year, 0 body language leadership, bad productivity in clutch situations, standing in the box, watching strike 3 go right past him in the 9th inning of a game. And I was critical of him. And to his credit, he has stepped up. To his credit. I think he struggled big time with finding his role on the team as a leader. No question, he has to be a leader. What kind of leader is the true question. He was talking about it when the Mets went over to London. He was asked about the team as the Mets started to play a little bit better. Then you get this, grimace thing going for the Mets. You get some contributions, but then Lindor starts to play well. They kind of shake things up, move him up to the leadoff spot. Sometimes as a baseball player, that's honestly all you need, is just a change that's so kind of unusual, but not the craziest thing ever. And it just changes your mindset, loosens you up a little bit, changes what you're thinking about. Next thing you know, Lindor has played a lot better. He's answered the call, and I'm going to tip my cap to him, and I got to give credit where credit is due. He's played a lot better. He started to lead by example. He started to lead with his emotion, started to come through in the clutch. But if the Mets want to do anything, that has to continue. It has to continue. And I think it can continue. And I think the Mets have the opportunity to get into the postseason. But if they want to make a splash and if they want to do anything the rest of this year and into the playoffs and for the next decade, it's got to go through Francisco Lindor. It has to. Period. End of story. That's my rant. That's my rant. But the Mets are relevant again. Right underneath the Mets is the Nationals. And I don't want to say right, but just Mets are in third. Nationals are in fourth. The Nationals 42-50. 17.5 back, 5.5 back of the playoff spot in terms of wild card. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they did just call up James Wood, who was yet another piece that my Padres gave up for Juan Soto. He looks every bit the part. He's 6'7". He plays left field. He absolutely just hammers the ball. And the Nationals are, I think they have officially gotten to the corner and made the turn. Right? They're turning the corner in the positive direction. I think they're playing above expectations this year, but also getting contributions big time. Looks good for the Nats. Another piece, right? James Wood, I mentioned, called up CJ Abrams, piece of that Juan Soto trade. He's made the All Star team. We'll go over that here shortly. Marlins 32 and 59. NL Central, Brewers 53 and 39, leading that division, plus 69 on the run differential. Good for them. The Cardinals are 48 and 42. They've started to turn the corner also a little bit, starting to get pretty darn lucky. They are minus 33 on the run differential. They're outplaying their expected win loss by 7 full games. Now, does that mean they've had some losses where, they're getting blown apart? Probably. Some close one-run wins? Probably. At the end of the day, win-loss is all that matters. And they are 6 games above 500. Probably happier to see that, and have started to play a little bit better. Pirates are 44 and 47. Reds are 44 and 48. And the Cubs are 43 and 49. So a game and a half separates the bottom 3 in that division. None of them are at least 3 games under 500 or better. It's kind of a big old pile of mediocrity there at the bottom 3 of that division. Yeah, be interested to see kind of what those teams do at the trade deadline. Last but not least, NL West. You got your Dodgers at the top. No surprise there. They are 55 and 37. Playing decent, weathering the storm. Mookie's been hurt. Their starting pitching has just gotten absolutely throttled with injuries. I mean, just worked with injuries, man. I mean, at this point right now, in terms of guys that are injured, updated as of literally yesterday. Some are long-term, some are not. Tyler Glasnow just went on the injured list. It's a 15-day injured list stint for lower back thing. I don't know. Like, it's not the end of the world with that, but he's on the injured list. Clayton Kershaw is coming back from the injured list, but still on the injured list. Dustin May, Tommy John, Walker Buehler, hurt. Tony Gonsolin, hurt. So they're working with the starting rotation right now. That's among the likes of James Paxton, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone. It's getting real thin for the Dodgers. The good news for the Dodgers is they have Shohei Ohtani, who is crazy. He is so unbelievably good. It's kind of hard to process the fact of how good he is as a hitter. They have Freddie Freeman. They have Will Smith. They're getting production in some other places. The Dodgers will be fine. Will they win 120 this year? No. But they'll win probably close to 100 and that division. Padres. My Padres are in second. Also started to play a little bit better ball as of late. 49 and 46. 7.5 back, but they are in the playoffs if the season ended today. That is cool. Hopefully they start to play a little bit better. Hopefully they start to get some guys back from injury. They got to get Yu Darvish back. They got to get Joe Musgrove back. They got to get Xander Bogaerts back. Yeah, they got to get some guys back. And when they do, we might be in better shape. We'll see. But we have 5 All-Stars, which is cool, and we'll get into that. Third place in that division, NL West, 45 and 47. Giants are also 45 and 47, and the Rockies are a steaming pile of crap. So that's where we stand with all the standings. If the playoffs were to start today in the National League, the 1 seed would be the Phillies, the 2 seed would be the Dodgers, the 3 seed would be the Brewers, the 4 seed would be the Braves, the 5 seed would be the Cardinals, and the 6 seed would be the Pods. So that's the NL standings. American League, the 1 seed would be, believe it or not, the Cleveland Guardians. 2 seed would be the Orioles, 3 seed would be the Mariners, 4 seed Yankees, 5 seed Minnesota Twins, 6 seed Boston Red Sox. Interesting look. Might be a little bit unexpected, but yeah, that's where we stand in the standings. Going over some stats real quick. It's amongst the normal usual suspects in terms of OPS. Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Gunnar Henderson, Rafi Devers, Juan Soto, Bryce Harper, all amongst the top 6 in OPS. And then in terms of player pitching and qualified starters with ERA, Seth Lugo leads all of baseball with a 2.21 ERA. That's stupid. But cool. Not stupid in a bad way. Congrats to Seth Lugo. That's just like crazy that it's him. Corbin Burns, Tarek Skubal, Ronel Blanco, Ranger Suarez, Tanner Houck, Zach Wheeler, Chris Sale. Some newer names, some more recognizable names. Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's only, it looks like there's, at this point, halfway through the season, 5 starters with at least 10 wins. Chris Sale leads baseball with 12 wins. So yeah, it's really interesting. Speaking of stat leaders and teams, as we get into this, all-star teams. American League starters, Adley Rutschman starting at catcher, Vlad Jr. at first, Jose Altuve at second, Jose Ramirez at third, Gunnar Henderson at shortstop, Aaron Judge in the outfield, Steven Kwan and Juan Soto. Those are your three outfielders, with Yordan Alvarez starting at DH. I think for the most part, fan voting got this pretty close to as good as you can get it. Maybe a couple toss-ups in the outfield. Bobby Witt Jr. at shortstop wouldn't have hurt, but I think they got the best guys at each spot. Especially since, all-star voting just like starts so early. It's hard to really nail it down, but they got it pretty darn close. National League starters, William Contreras at catcher, Bryce Harper at first, Ketel Marte at second, Alec Boehm at third, Trey Turner at short, Jurickson Mother Profar in the outfield. Padres, dude, I love it. And we'll get into it. Well, we're getting into it now. Well, I mean, Jurickson Profar made the All-Star team. How awesome is that? Top vote getter amongst all outfielders, and rightfully and respectfully so. I mean, he's got an OPS north of 900, or at least it was for most of the season. Batting average is north of 300. I mean, he's got, I think at this point, 13 home runs. He's on pace for close to 30 homers, man. I mean, good for him. Awesome to finally see Jurickson Profar flourishing, playing up to expectations, and getting the recognition he deserves as the top outfield vote getter and a starter in the NL All-Star game. Fernando Tatis Jr. also elected a starter in the National League in the outfield. Won't be able to play. He's dealing with an injury. But good for him. And then Christian Yelich getting voted in as another National League outfielder. Has had a really solid year so far this year. Good for Christian Yelich to see him kind of back amongst the best in the league. And the DH in the NL, no surprise, Shohei Ohtani. AL reserves, in terms of pitchers, you've got Tyler Anderson from the Angels, who's pitched pretty well. Good for him. Second All-Star selection. Corbin Burns from the Orioles, elected as a pitcher, or I guess these are voted on by, I think it's a combination of coaches, players, front office guys. I don't know. Either way, Tyler Anderson from the Angels, Corbin Burns from the Orioles, Emmanuel Clase from Cleveland, Garrett Crochet from the White Sox, Logan Gilbert from the Mariners, Clay Holmes from the Yankees, Tanner Houck from the Red Sox, Seth Lugo, Cole Ragans from the Royals, Mason Miller from the Oakland A's, Tarek Skubal from the Detroit Tigers, and Kirby Yates from the Rangers. Those are your American League reserves in terms of pitchers. In terms of National League reserves, in terms of National League pitcher reserves. Tyler Glasnow, elected by, again, don't know the exact process, players, coaches, front office. First All-Star selection for him. Mentioned it just a minute ago. He just got put on the IL, so I don't think he'll be able to participate in that game. And we'll be getting a replacement. I don't think that's been announced yet. No, maybe it has. Hunter Green? I don't know. Tyler Glasnow, All-Star. Hunter Green from the Reds, All-Star. Ryan Helsley, closer for the Cardinals, All-Star. Jeff Hoffman from the Philadelphia Phillies has had a monster season in their bullpen. He's an All-Star. Shoto Imanaga for the Cubs has slowed down substantially, but did well enough in the early parts of the season to be an All-Star. Ronaldo Lopez from the Braves, All-Star. Chris Sale from the Braves, All-Star. Tanner Scott, Marlins bullpen piece. Paul Skeens from the Pittsburgh Pirates made the All-Star team. Matt Strahm in the Phillies bullpen, All-Star. Ranger Suarez, Phillies, All-Star. Zach Wheeler, Phillies, All-Star. Dude, the Phillies are loaded. Talked about it already, but man, it's crazy. Logan Webb from the Giants, All-Star, and Robert Suarez, Padres closer, has made the All-Star team for pitchers. American League reserves for position players. Their catcher position player backup is Salvi Perez. Good for him. Their infielders the rest of the way through: Rafael Devers, Carlos Correa, Jordan Westberg, named as a replacement after, I don't know who got put on the IL or who couldn't make it, but Jordan Westberg was named an All-Star very recently. From the Orioles, Josh Naylor. From the Guardians, Isaac Paredes. From the Tampa Bay Rays, Marcus Semien from the Rangers, and Bobby Witt Jr. as the backup shortstop. Very well could have been the starter. And then the National League outfield backups, Jarren Duran from the Red Sox, having a monster first half. Riley Green from the Tigers, and Kyle Tucker from the Astros. National League backup catcher is Will Smith. Not a huge shocker there. Guys played his tail off this year. National League infielders, CJ Abrams from the Nationals, mentioned him. Pete Alonso from the Mets. Luis Ariz from my San Diego Padres. Mookie Betts, who's hurt. Ellie De La Cruz from the Reds. Freddie Freeman from the Dodgers. And Ryan McMahon from the Rockies. And then National League outfield backups, Teoscar Hernandez from the Dodgers, Elliot Ramos from the Giants, Brian Reynolds from the Pittsburgh Pirates, and Jackson Merrill from my Padres as a rookie. Dude is an absolute monster. I'm super excited that he was able to get elected to the All-Star team, whatever way possible. The dude absolutely deserves it. I don't know or don't think he'll be starting in the outfield in the All-Star game, but I don't know. Probably going to be Teoscar Hernandez in replacement of Fernando Tatis Jr. But yeah. And then the DH reserve for the American League is David Fry, which is really cool, and Marcelo Zuna in the National League. So that's your All-Star rosters. The Padres have 5, which is cool. The Dodgers have, I don't know, 4 maybe. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And there's like 34 some odd first-time All-Stars, which is awesome. What's really more interesting to me is looking at the All-Star teams and then looking at the top paid players in baseball this year, right? If you go down the top 15 players in terms of average annual salary in Major League Baseball this season, top 15 guys. There are, as I'm counting now, 1, 2 All-Stars? 3 All-Stars. So if you go through the top 15 highest paid players, average annual value in Major League Baseball, top 15 guys, there are 3 that made the All-Star team this year. 3 dudes. Injuries, they happen. But that is absolutely insane. Highest paid player, average annual, Shohei Ohtani, All-Star. After that, it goes Scherzer and Verlander. Neither are All-Stars. Injuries, understandable. Regardless, that means they weren't contributing in the first half. Aaron Judge is 4th, average annual. Of course, he's an All-Star and having a great year. Then you've go Jacob deGrom, Anthony Rendon, Mike Trout, Garrett Cole, Patrick Corbin, all guys dealing with injuries, regardless, whatever, not on the All-Star team. Corey Seager has played better. He's 10th highest paid average annual, not an All-Star. Nolan Arenado, Steven Strasburg, Francisco Lindor. All of those dudes are not All-Stars. 14th highest average annual value, Carlos Correa, All-Star as a reserve. And then your 15th highest paid average annual is Giancarlo Stanton, not an All-Star. I think that is absolutely insane. And I think it is not good for Major League Baseball players. It's not good. I know injuries happen. I know the long-term contracts are a risk, and everyone's aware of that. But don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if in the upcoming few seasons for the free agent classes that end up emerging, if you start to see players not get what they're looking for more often and more frequently. You already started to see it with Blake Snell, with Matt Chapman, with who was the other Boris guy? Snell, Chapman, JD Martinez. Or I know these guys are older, but you already started to see it, right? But don't be shocked if the upcoming free agent classes in Major League Baseball don't get big contracts. They might get high contracts average annual, but don't be shocked if the long-term commitment starts to fade from teams, right? You already started to see it in the past offseason with Snell, with Chapman, where it's like Blake Snell just won the Cy Young. The guy just won the Cy Young, and nobody gave them what they were looking for. He got the average annual deal, but got almost like a prove it thing from the Giants. Also, Blake Snell hasn't been contributing for the Giants at all this year. And if you go through the top 15 highest paid players in baseball this season, in terms of average annual value, top 15 highest paid players, 3 of them were all-stars. Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, and Carlos Correa. Correa is a reserve. The rest of the guys are not all-stars. Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Jacob deGrom, Anthony Rendon, Mike Trout, Garrett Cole, Patrick Corbin, Corey Seager, Arenado, Giancarlo Stanton. These dudes aren't all-stars. So what's to say these teams are going to start making more long-term commitments? They're just not. The players are absolutely ruining themselves. They're doing themselves a massive disservice. I know injuries happen, but man, if you're telling me this is not going to affect long-term contracts moving forward, it absolutely is going to. Absolutely. And it's not great for players. That's all I'll say. We'll see what happens, man, but yeah. Crazy to see. And then, yeah, the last thing to point out here is, the offense. Yeah, so we're, a full, we're more than halfway through this season. We've got the shift limitations. We've got the pitch clock. We've got the pickoff limitations. We've got all these things that were implemented by the commissioner without player consent, of course, but implemented by the commissioner to increase offensive production. And we sit here now in 2024, halfway through the season, more than halfway through, and league-wide OPS is lower than it was last season. League-wide slugging is lower than it was last season. Number of hits per game is lower than it was last season. Runs per game, lower than last season. Point is, the commissioner threw out all these things of shift limitations and pickoff limitations and bigger bases and let's get offense going and pitch clock. All any of that's done is speed the game up a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean a good amount. But the shift limitations has done nothing. And in fact, league-wide offense in terms of the last 10 years is way below average. OPS is way below average over the last decade, this year compared to the previous 9 seasons. And every offensive metric is below the average. So guess what? The shift limitations did nothing. Because Rob Manfred apparently doesn't realize it is harder to actually make contact, solid contact with the baseball now than it has been in any previous time in the history of baseball. Shift limitations did nothing. Pickoff limitations, they increased stolen bases. But that doesn't mean it's easier to just hit the ball and drive that guy in who stole from first to second base. Strikeouts, I guess they're down a little bit. But overall, hitting the ball hard is always going to be hard. Rob Manfred, you can limit where the position players are on the field, but all you did was really limit where ground balls end up. Didn't limit where the outfielders can line up. and the shift limitations are barely anything, offense in baseball this year is down from where it's been in the last 10 years. It's down from last year, but Rob Manfred implemented all these new rules, made the game go by quicker. Offense is going to go up at the expense of pitchers, by the way. Pitch clock's happening, more injuries, left and right and left and right and left and right, faster, faster, faster. Guess what? Offense hasn't changed. In fact, it's down this year as opposed to last year, and down this year in terms of the overall average of the last 10 seasons combined. It's down. All offensive metrics are down. It's harder now to hit a baseball than ever before in the history of the sport. Balls are moving quicker. Pitchers are developing better and more efficient spin. Everything is changing. Pitchers are always going to have the advantage. So, hey, Rob, next time you just blindly implement something without player consent and ultimately hurt your sport because everybody's getting hurt on the mound, why don't you do a little bit more research? Why don't you use more pitcher-friendly balls? Why don't you get rid of the pitch clock or expand it a little bit? Give batters a little bit more time in between pitches. Give pitchers a little bit more recovery time in between pitches. And then maybe, call me crazy, you see less pitcher injuries and you see more consistent offensive production. Nah, make the game faster, quick as possible. Let's randomly throw a Band-Aid on a bigger wound and limit where the infielders can line up. Oh, wait, it did nothing. Offense is down. Idiot, man. All right, that's it. Episode 54. Episode 54. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We Know About Baseball podcast. My name is Ryan, at Ryan Knows Ball. That's my handle on Twitter. At We Know Ball Sports, Instagram, TikTok. Excited for the All-Star festivities. This time next week, it will be over. Like literally the All-Star game will be over. Home Run Derby will be over. Derby participants, I think that we know of so far. Alec Boehm, Gunnar Henderson, Jose Ramirez, Marcell Ozuna. I don't know of anybody else. I could be missing a guy or two, and I'm sure we'll find out as we get closer. Either way, hopefully you guys enjoyed episode 54 of the We Know Baseball podcast. Follow us on social media. Thanks for tuning in. As always, share with any and everybody that you want, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Let's go, batter up. We're taking the afternoon off. It's a beautiful day for a home run, but even a triple's okay. We're gonna cheer